Hello everybody and welcome back to World Star Battle Tournament 2. This is Artemis and with me I have BozoCat again.
Hello again.
Woohoo! We are going to be casting Nephilim versus 7th Fleet in the quarterfinals. This is going to be game 1. And this promises, of course, as you get closer and closer to the ultimate grand finals, the games get more and more interesting and closer and closer. Looking forward to it. And here we go. So spawning in the bottom we have 7th Fleet. We have 7th Fleet with double Leviathan opening, double Leviathan seen over and over and over this tournament. Double 6 carrier open. We have an Overlord and double Overlord actually. Double Overlord Plague, double carrier 6 and double Leviathan. From the top we have another double Leviathan. Guys, come up with something different. Double Leviathan. 2 5-Spine Guardians, a Destro, and a Raven. This is the same that we've seen before this tournament so far on my stream. And we'll see how these two teams manage up. It's going to be the battle of the Leviathans, the outside lane. And we'll see how it goes. But the Raven with an EMP is a good choice considering you have the Overlords. And the first Overlord gets wiped out before he can get off his first Plague. Poor Kraken. We still have Lullard, who's able to get one off in the Destro. Yep, Wildfire pushing on Riker, getting some initial damage, but not as much as you think. Got the shields down to half. Counter launch on Cool Breeze. This is a launching comp from 7th Fleet. So they will hopefully be pressing the advantage of being able to spam a lot of fighter launches. Thanks to the excellent analysis. Bozo, do you want to speak a little bit more to the comps?
Sure. This is actually interesting. I have never seen a high-level game with Double Overlord where the teams were relatively balanced in ability. So I'll be watching closely to see how Double Overlord progresses. The only Double Overlord games I've ever seen, they opened Swarm Command and it was terrible. It stole all their farm and didn't create quite enough push power. What I'm seeing here is that the carriers of G-Star and Riker are just getting bossed around by the Leviathans and by Wildfire. But Wildfire is getting plagued constantly because these guys are never going to run out of energy for Plague. They can just alternate, and one Raven just can't take care of it. A good Raven cannot counter a good Overlord. There's just too many places to be, and you can hide in the dark of the map and come from unexpected angles. So I expect to see Wildfire burn, like, real soon. In fact, he should be burning when this Plague that's on him now ends. However, the Double Guard and the Raven should be able to hold even without him.
Yep, because it's not like the Overlords can actually push, and it's not like the carriers can actually push. It's not like they're facing a Destro in the center who could really focus and run them down. Really, it's basically 7th Fleet has a long range approach. No one can really tank damage in the middle that much, except they can lob plagues and they can launch, trying to just basically keep the distance. Whoops, bit of a misdirection there, going back to Wildfire. He's definitely a better target than a 5-Spine Guardian.
I'd like to see, actually, those launches going to the outside lanes. Both of those levies are pretty soft, and the center has to back without Wildfire, so that makes the side levies very vulnerable to being warp-tricked and run down. They've been adapting for levy versus levy play, which means they're not strong against carriers, so if all of the launching ships appear on the side and go after a levy, they could get a kill, but we see Caboose is already starting to back up and regenerate. He's got the superior farm, he's winning.
Yeah.
Kira and Duality are about equal.
Though Kira does have a bit more armor right off the bat. Nope, armor for health actually. Duality's gone for health upgrades, Kira's just gone for armor. Which is actually a wise choice, I believe, given that they're interceptor launches. Getting a bit more armor.
Here come the sideline launches. That's what I wanted to see a little bit earlier.
There we go.
When they were more vulnerable.
Yep, and no one else can help them out, and they've only got the 4 tents. Wildfire warping on the top on Kira, getting bots and nothing else. Won't be able to help out much with the lasers, but every little bit is a good assist. Let's do the farm count. While Bozo types it out, I'll show you the individual farm scores. 765 to 852. So So regardless of the fact we keep talking about how 7th Fleet has an interesting comp and they're able to push, it's actually still the advantage in Nephilim's favor.
Standard is standard for a reason.
Yep. There's that thread on the forum. Someone was asking, what are general standard comps? And something sort of like this: double Guardians, double Leviathans. You can't really go wrong.
Some people will throw an outside carrier and you'll mix up what support you do, but this is what standard looks like.
Bit of a push here on Duality, pushing him to the edge of the map. While at the same time, actually, Duality's in a good position. His team's warping in now. Nice EMP by Cool Breeze. He caught both of the Overlords at once. That's a rare occurrence, and the carrier, actually. Kira's hanging back a bit. Doesn't have rapid regen this early. And the whole right side is open. Prometheum is able to farm without much resistance, but is going to need to pull back eventually for the rapid regen upgrades. So it's really a staggered upgrade so far on Nephilim's side. Another launch, nice one on Cool Breeze, but the Guardians are going to be there to help clean it up. Now Wildfire is still almost at full shields and health, so be able to stay on tank, except the Guardians will need to go back to upgrade, so Wildfire will have to be cautious about being too pushy, especially with all those launching ships, and Wildfire doesn't have any, he has no lasers yet. Now let's take a look again at the Levy story because it's so important. Thanks, Bozo, for the upgrades. So on the bottom we have Caboose and Prometheum. So Caboose has got 172 farm, Prometheum a little bit of an advantage of 194. And at the top we've got Duality versus Cura. Duality is at 130 and Cura is at 192. So a bit of a swap here. So overall the Leviathans are relatively even, but they're unevenly matched in their lanes.
I don't like Kira buying this many life upgrades this early. That's a little over 100 minerals that could be being banked up for rapid regen, which is much more effective at doing the same thing that life upgrades do.
And actually Kira only has one range upgrade right now. I would prioritize 9 range, especially because Kira already has 7 bile. Duality is already at 9 range, and range is really huge for Leviathans early on. So I would like to see the range and maybe not so many health upgrades.
With a big cut down on Prometheum.
Yep, and a warp in. Not going to be able to follow. Prometheum's going to be able to get out of there, and he has rapid regen.
1.61 means he's faster than the entire opposing team.
Except for the Leviathan. Oh no, wait, Kira may have 1.6.
Also 1.5.
Kira,
It's
except for...
very unusual for a Levy to stay that slow.
Yep. And taking a look at the top, Duality is really far up with Kira, but 7th Fleet is pushing back again and won't be able to... they'll be able to cover in case Nephilim decides to turn. And how are our Overlords doing? Are they relatively even? Pretty much. Being in the center, they would get about the same amount of farm. Now, Nephilim looks like they're staggering back more of their upgrades. We'll see what Wildfire gets this round. Corrosive Acid on a Bruce Campbell and Scourge on an Anabolic on D-Magic. Or sorry, just Magic. There is a D-Magic. Caboose is starting to go into the orange, having to pull back a little bit to rapid regen. Wildfire comes back in, more energy, now getting the lasers. Sorry, no energy, just getting lasers and range. No rapid regen on Duality up at the top, but he's banking back minerals. He probably will go back for some installs. possibly an acid spray. Cool Breeze are in the orange, full shields though, but vulnerable to launches. Will need to stay close to his team. G-Ster and Riker are both at 10, around 10 interceptors. So, at this point, not deadly, but definitely annoying. And both the Guardians for Nephilim are keeping up with their one shot.
We noticed a lot of farms going past Kira. I think that might be an indication of perhaps a little bit less experienced play at Leviathan than the rest of Nephilim.
Yeah, that was a big patch that just passed by. And then also just the health upgrades. And I think actually, was that your ping, Bozo? Or was
It
that?
was. I was indicating the location.
Ah, okay, cool. Used to be, I don't know if Specs could ping before Heart of the Swarm. Don't believe so.
It was added in the 2.05 patch.
Perfect. So yeah, Kira now is the 9 range, so can actually go toe-to-toe now with Duality. Duality's now starting to get health upgrades, and has gotten Acid Spray. G-Ster and Riker. G-Ster now has Warpin, and now at level 12 ints and 12 ints on Riker as well. Nephilim pulling back. Generally to upgrade, they generally all have a decent amount of minerals for it. And Prometheum also has Acid Spray, so both of the 7th Fleet Leviathans have Acid Spray, which is interesting, but it helps reduce the armor of the target, so every bit helps, but I'm not sure it was the most worthy use of minerals at the moment. What do you think, Bozo?
Sorry, what was that?
Double Acid Spray on the 2 7th Fleet Leviathans.
It's very interesting because typically when you go Scourge, you go double Scourge so that you can totally overwhelm them with your Scourge.
But they only have one in this case.
And I think that 7th is just so used to people doing that because it's sort of the optimal way to play that they're just assuming that they need to buy defenses for double Scourge.
I mean, they can use it for sure. It's not an expensive install, but I sort of thought it was interesting.
It's a weird mind game. To a certain extent, it makes sense. It's a lot of effort for a levy to switch sides, and the Scourging Guardian can just switch sides. So it makes sense to me that they would switch, or that they would get it doubly. Also, it generally has a lot of utility for catching missed farm and for damaging people in that critical push when everybody's balled up and you can't reach them.
Yep, that's when some of the mukes come out. Launch a caboose. That's going to help out Prometheum a bit. Wildfire circling back in the center. Again, it's interesting. This isn't very NA-ish. We don't see the brawling that we did in the last games we've casted. Just sort of dancing around, really. While these Leviathans essentially are going to see who becomes the ultimate OP boss levy. G-Ster got Corrosive Acid. No Scourge on him yet, but Wildfire's locked on. No DPS behind Wildfire, so this is just a push. So buying Acid Spray and Energy push Duality back on the Bile War with Kira. But he's slowly catching up. This really feels to me like a bit of a dance between the two teams. We're really not getting those major pushes just because of the centers, though I suppose the Nephilim fleet could actually push with their Guardians if they wanted to behind the Destro. Bidding a bit of Scourge on a Prometheum as Caboose pushes. Kraken helmet of launch.
I feel like Nephilim should be trying to exert more pressure at this point than they're doing. And that they're basically giving 7th an opening to come back with this double carrier mixture. They're eventually going to have a catch. They're going to have energy superiority. Late game overlords are very good against a Zerg heavy combination. Meanwhile, there's vastly superior pushing power available to Nephilim if they would just, get PDDs and
push.
just start shoving. And that's not going to last forever. Eventually the carriers will get so nasty that the PDDs will be relatively irrelevant. So there's a window here, and they need to exploit it, and whether or not they win this game will probably depend on whether they exploit that.
I think the window's closing. These carriers now have about 300 to 400 minerals each. So their next back, they're probably not going to be getting any installs. They won't be able to go much into feedback if they decide to do that, so probably more ints at this stage. But yeah, I agree. I'm just not feeling this balling up in the center. Because they have the 2 Guardians and the Destro, so it's not like they don't have a tank. From 7th Fleet side, and here we go, Warp Trick. From 7th Fleet side, they don't have that pushing power, so they have to hang back. Be more aggressive. Yep, Caboose is going to get tons of free farm down at the prisms, and presumably he's going to go back to the corner and warp out before they cut on him. Could be an advantage. There's an advantage and a disadvantage to doing that. Like a Void Ray, the Void Ray really needs a lot of farm and then can become quite deadly, but at the same time, it means that your team gets started with a little bit of farm. And speaking of farm, let's check it out. Still 6v6, folks. We got 2100 farm for 7th Fleet and 2350 farm for Nephilim. So Nephilim, regardless of us saying they're not pushing enough, they are getting ahead in the farm count. And as far as our top farm is concerned, that's Kira. And then coming up second is Duality on 7th Fleet and Prometheum, the other Leviathan. Nice play catching 3. Nice play by Kraken, catching the 2 Guardians and the Destro. Destro doesn't have shields. Not much anyways. And as well, we've got Siphon on one of the Overlords. Both Overlords have Siphon, so they're going to be able to start to dominate the energy war. So what did Cool Breeze do?
I think he spent too much on lasers. And also, Nephilim's not giving him priority farm, which they ought to be doing.
Because he's their only energy deny. So.
Well, 7th has pretty nasty bile at this point. Some PDBs would really help the Guardians win their assignments.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it was just a reaction to being launched on so often, rather than letting the team, because the Guardians have level 16 or something, level 13 and 16 spines. If he hangs out around them, he'll be safe. But could be just a knee-jerk reaction.
Like he's up to 11 lasers now. That's one shot. It feels like a bub build to me.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result, he can't help his team at all. All he can do is cast the occasional EMP. And now the Overlords have 9 range that they can now plague from outside EMP range. EMP is basically useless.
Yeah. We could talk about one-shot a little bit too. Some ships really should keep up with one-shot, like Leviathans, but other ones like Destros, BCs, sometimes support ships, they don't really need to, because the energy is better spent elsewhere.
A lot of it depends on the firing rate. For instance, Guardians are good to have at one shot because the firing rate is so high that it scales well. Leviathans get bonus damage, that's why it's good for them to be one shot. Also, it allows them to bypass PDDs and other shot blocking attacks. Meanwhile, ships that fire more slowly you don't want on one shot. You get a damage penalty versus massive. So for instance, even though he's at 11 lasers, he's still only doing 32 damage a shot on this Raven, and that's why it's kind of a waste of money.
That makes sense. And I want to just point out that both Overlords for 7th have Parasite. So they have Parasites on them, so that can actually help out with Scourge, and also just keeping an eye on the team. Kira's warping back with 469 bot Frenzy. Not quite enough energy to support it, but has enough damage to do so. Caboose as the Bioplasmid, as we discussed. Not that much bile. But 500 energy, so really is banking on spamming Bioplasmid and Rapid Regen. Wildfire warping in at the bottom now. With Bombardment, 10 armor, 6 lasers, 400 energy.
I'd like to note that Nephilim took about a minute to cycle themselves in and out for upgrades, and to a certain extent that let them keep the line of scrimmage at about the 2/3 mark rather than right at their prisms. And that has a certain value, but at the same time it also means that they're not at the enemy's prism for those 2 minutes. some of the teams that have a sort of a slightly stronger reputation, like Cyberdyne and Eclipsis, they tend to send one chip back early to upgrade and then just have that dive into the enemy, usually a destroyer, or swing around for a warp trick so that the enemy still can't press into the prisms, but also the whole upgrade sequence takes place faster.
Yeah, because the bottom line, if you have to choose of upgrading one at a time or all at once, do it all at once. Because
7's doing it just right, by the way.
yeah, they're just pulling back because then everyone comes out full health, fully upgraded in one big push as a ball, which in and of itself is also scary because if you're the last one to upgrade, you're usually the stronger. Kraken Domes. Yeah, warping in a little bit too much to the center. Acid spray, everything there. The Leviathans, the two overlords got EMP'd.
Two corrosive acid stacks, they back off.
Yeah. And there you go, even with the balling up and pushing, warping in. The right ship gets corrosive acid on him and goes down to half health. The rest of the team's going to start to pull back.
As Husky says, pro tip of the day, if you're fragile, warp into the back of the ball, not the front.
Yes, exactly. And then also judge it whether or not, if your team is pursuing another team, you can warp into the back of the ball, but also get a feel for knowing when that counter push is going to come. Because if you warp in just as the other team counter pushes, your back of the ball will be the back of the ball as you're running away. So you don't want to get caught there either.
Spamming this bioplasmid. I have no idea if it's good or not, but it's hilarious.
Would that be a donation for not often used abilities?
It has to get a kill. But I think bioplasmid is in fact on my list. So.
Yep, because Bozo put you've got your list of uncommonly used comps and ukes, right? Every time that happens or there's a win based off it.
It's not just nukes, like it's Gatlings for the Destro. But basically, any time that something that's not favored in the meta kills somebody, I will donate $10.
Yep.
To Doctors Without Borders, the official charity for Swarm of Hearts.
And FYI, guys, yeah, you know, we see a lot of double levies, so if you play double levies, you're not going to get a donation.
Think of the children. Run, Rav, Rav. Big double launch on Caboose, taking a lot of damage, but the Guardians are right there to cover him.
Yep. Oops, EMP missed everyone there. And who's this? Tough, thanks. I got the message.
Yep.
I'm gonna go to BozoCam. Brought to you by Grammatically Correct Cats.
Ow! Alright, we're gonna spend some time watching Caboose get launched on a lot, because he's the only low ship right now. In the center, get the everyone cam going here. We've got Kira Duality dancing on the top side, still with tons of bile. I would love to see PDDs, so that one of them could win. It would be Kira. There are no PDDs available for 7th. Prometheum had switched into the center and left the carriers on the side. Caboose really suffering from that concentrated loss, while Prometheum is able to fight the entire center all by himself with a superior range and bile. So this was a very, very intelligent switch by 7th, and they finally have map control. We'll see how much it earns them. We now have Nephilim going back, upgrading. They're very low. Uh-oh, Caboose stayed out for a little bit of farm, double launch on him. Acid sprays. He's going to be okay, but it was a scary moment. G-Ster and Riker with 16 and 13 ints respectively. Caboose got down to about 1500 there before he came back up. Kira setting up the warp trick. 7th flees before Kira. I don't know if Kira's a he or a she. Name sounds feminine. Everybody on the internet is masculine. I am very confused.
You're a confused kitty.
When the stream delay ends, you guys can let me know of what I should be saying there. Send me a message on the BattleNet, and I'm not the primary caster, so it won't appear on the stream.
I'm polling the audience. I'm polling the audience right now.
Okay, G-Ster is very, very caught by the double frenzy. And the corrosive 1000 bioplasma discharge. Boom!
Ba-dum boom!
Caboose just earned $10 for Doctors Without Borders. Thank you, Caboose.
Woohoo! Because the other requirement also is that it's games that you cast, Bozo, because then you know what to look
It
for.
is indeed. Kira's gonna burn to death.
Oh!
Of plague and acid spray. That was beautiful.
Oh. Painful on one side, beautiful on another. Painful, beautiful destruction.
I've
So,
had that happen to me. It is the most agonizing death that exists.
yeah, well, I was thinking the Do Prejudice game with OSB, he died within, like, I don't know, 10 pixels of the command center. Or something like that. Sorry, I keep bringing up OSB, but it was epic in a bad way. Alright, so let's take a stock of what's going on with all these deaths. We're now 5v5. We've lost... G-ster was a... What was G-ster? G-ster was a... Carrier, thank you.
They traded the center carrier for a side Leviathan, and the farm situation is turned upside down, and 7th is up by 300.
Yep, so this is going to be very interesting. To be honest, I'd rather lose a carrier than a Leviathan. Just because for the utility of it. A Guardian would have been a better choice of loss, just because Leviathans get so OP later. Which is why they're a huge part of the meta.
Can still do everything that they need a carrier for, which is to create fear, create the requirement for spines, keep the broodlords from coming out, and then to text people later.
Yep.
This show is really about the overlords and about the Leviathans, and those are all still out.
Mm-hmm. And have the parasites expired? Yes, they have. So we'll be waiting to see them being reapplied, probably on the overlords, though I think the carrier would be a favorite target, and because Riker now has techs. So Nephilim would be very wise to text Riker just to know where he is at all times. And now they've gotten pushed back to their prisms. Wildfire's now down into hull damage. Boom! That Psy Blast hurt.
1310 versus Mechanical, 1600 versus Bio for Kraken Dome's Psy Blast. Lord also has Psy Blast, but it's much smaller. 910 versus Mechanical, 1200 versus Bio.
But still, every bit helps, and when you've got enough mukes, it can make a big difference.
So this is actually starting to look very, very bad for Nephilim. They lost their late game ship, or one of their late game ships. Wildfire is stuck in a mid game build. He doesn't have enough lasers for shield. He's starting to go into Gatling guns. He's got bombardment, pro field, so he's
jumping all over the place.
Scary, but in a mid game kind of way, not in a late game kind of way. Can't afford mines. Bruce Campbell, 21 spines, corrosive parasite, very dangerous in a mid game way. No broodlords. Let's look at magic. 15 spines, corrosive, scourge, anabolic, parasite. Very dangerous in the mid-game way. Nothing for the late game. Meanwhile, we've got Psy Blast, which scales excellently. We've got Vortex, which is good at all times in the game. And we've got Double Frenzy Levies just sitting together waiting for somebody to make a mistake.
And with a little icing on top of Interceptors, which you can always dump into. Level 13, they'll eventually will be ignorable, but still, yeah, just icing on the cake.
If they're anywhere near the Guardians, they're basically useless. 21 spines will counter that very hard. Cool Breeze finally has his PDDs. He started dumping into energy. It's amazing how much you can afford if you don't up your lasers.
Because lasers get expensive after a while. Yeah, he won't need to upgrade them for a while, that's for sure. Because he's at 11. He only needs to be... Yeah, he can actually not upgrade for 10 minutes. Vortex! Tex. The first Tex I've seen this tournament.
Double Frenzy on Wildfire.
PDD, not quite the right placement, but Prometheus slides.
Take a swim in the pool.
Doing the sideways slide, and we're losing magic. Guardian's down. Wildfire's on point. Caboose is pushing with his bioplasmid.
That Vortex double side blast is really nasty.
Yep. Wildfire's in the red. Basically Nephilim has to do a full retreat here.
Lots of credit for Nephilim for playing safe enough to survive to where all of their late game investments pay out, and also playing aggressive enough to not get completely contained and killed by a double levy comp while doing something non-standard.
Yeah.
Props to them.
And also I say props to Cool Breeze. Even though we're poking fun of him for the lasers, I've actually seen him catch those overlords a lot with the EMPs and do double and catching more than one ship sometimes, like he just now. So, good EMPing. But yes, this is not looking good at all. Duality soloing that tower. PDDs aren't out again. And this is really where the lack of energy on the Raven is really going to hurt, because he won't be able to spam PDDs. We won't be seeing a forest. So, thanks Bozo. So we're seeing a 1,300 farm lead for 7th. Not looking good here for Nephilim. 5-4 right now. Wildfire on the outside lane, really just trying to farm it up so he can get those installs and upgrades. Can you tell me about the PDD duration? I don't play Raven.
So if you get durable materials, it increases the duration of your PDDs from 35 seconds to a minute 15,
Whoa.
which is a 40% increase-ish. Wildfire saying no pings. I wonder if my pings are bleeding through, even though I'm an observer. I'm going to stop pinging and then I'll ask about that between games.
It says allows you to ping a location that only your allies will see. Theoretically, you're not allies with anyone. You're an observer. But
there could be a bug. I'll ask him after.
yeah,
I don't wanna
and
mess that up.
and if that's the case, we apologize. The only things we pinged really were a farm patch and
Warp tricks that had already been spotted.
okay. So I think we're all right. But again, apologies. We're gonna figure this out because this is Heart of the Swarm interface. Stuff is new. We're trying to figure it out along with everyone else. Bombarding the farm. Wildfire's got a bit of energy. He's going back and he's siphoned. He's got to use it anyways. 21 spines on Mr. Bruce Campbell. I always think of Campbell soup, actually. I need to have breakfast and lunch. That would be awesome.
Yeah, you should get food. Casting is hard work.
Yeah, after like 2 hours of sleeping last night, I'm like, yeah, no food. I'll start getting delirious. I'll start saying like, oh, the little cute baby leviathans. They're so cute, come and hug me. Or something. I would love to see the debuff a mini Leviathan going around. That'd be awesome. Especially if he had 20 bile.
There's a thread on the forums about it.
Yep. So Dizetu, if you're watching, let's have mini Leviathans just for fun.
He did make a reference to the thread in the April Fool's patch, so he's aware of it.
Yep. Well, with the beta coming out, guys, well, the beta's in progress right now. And according to the teaser trailer, we should be seeing Star Battle 3.0 in May. Wildfire sieging up, but only level 6 lasers, so more of a deterrent, but not really a heavy damage dealing maneuver, trying basically to save those towers by planting himself in between. He does have range upgrades though. Bruce Campbell skirting on the outside, working on that farm. The parasites are off on... We've got a parasite on Kraken Domes, the Overlord, and I believe we... Oh yes, we're missing the Guardian, so that's why we don't have a second parasite.
Kraken Domes is a monster. Do not let him get
Tex on the Guardian.
That Guardian is dead.
Yep.
There's no way you can protect him.
He was in the yellow before he went in, and he got Psy Blast just before. Wildfire's not quite in position. He's trying to inch up just to try to cover, but he won't really be able to do much. Bruce Campbell just getting muked to death. 3 PDDs out trying to protect him. Psy Blast finishes him off.
That's terrifying.
Yeah, it is quite frightening. And remember, folks, Psy Blast has an additional extra 350 damage or more. It scales extra damage against Zerg.
Extra. Yeah,
which is very frightening. I like the effect, just totally random. I love the effect of when Wildfire sieges up on and he fires at the creep or the interceptors, they catch on fire and then they're flying as they're on fire. I think that's sort of awesome.
Pretty awesome. Yeah, I did not see that until this tournament, since I normally play on a very, very weak machine. But my hard drive exploded, and so I am playing on my wife's very shiny Alienware. Thank you to my wife Larissa. She's very supportive of Star Battle. Go her.
Woohoo! Thanks to all the people who let us play games all day, and all night, and all weekend.
Indeed.
There goes the top tower. Duality and Prometheum are playing the who can be a bigger Leviathan war, but Duality's winning right now, with over 17k health.
I want to see at least another 3,000 health before I start calling you Shpig.
Shapig, the famous Shapig, Leviathan player. He only plays Leviathan, basically. I did see him play BC, though, a couple times. And it looks like 7th is not, they're not trying to take that last tower.
They're respecting Wildfire Siege, which I actually think is kind of a mistake. Wildfire Siege is not powerful, and it's gonna be if they let it.
Well, how much does he have? Because I can't, he's doing a good job of positioning himself under the mothership, so there we go. So he's not clickable.
With 17 range.
Yep.
Which is, decent. That's 1290 damage every 3 seconds.
It's not, it's decent, but it's not OP, basically. No. He wasn't teching that direction. Like, things like his bombard and his protective field, not very useful now that he's going into siege. So 7th going back to regroup. These Leviathans pulling back, but I think they could hang around here.
They may be letting them out to try to catch him off guard.
True, trying to bait them in for another text, which has worked very well for 7th so far. Each of those volleys, wow.
400 energy, so it will not take a blackout to prevent him from texting. Which Cool Breeze definitely can't afford right now.
Nope. He's just at 575 energy. So his purpose now is to spam those PDDs, but that's totally good because you have 20 and 22 bile on these Leviathans. You've got to focus on mitigating their damage. The problem is that Caboose is he's at 19 bile, respectable, but there's only one of him. So he can't be everywhere.
Okay, what I think is going to happen now is, given all the shield upgrades on Riker, they're going to take the tower, and then they will run in, text Wildfire, and snipe the mothership.
Mm-hmm.
He's got energy so that he can't be denied from texting, and he's got shield so that he won't die when he goes in for it.
The two Leviathans just running down Caboose regardless of Wildfire, just ignoring him, basically. And then just rapid regenning. The two of them were double frenzied. Bottom tower's going down now. This is a last stand of a Raven and a Destro, not the ideal combination. The ideal combination is an Arbiter or Destro for Chrono Boost. But it's a last stand as Lullard slows down the game. Tex on Wildfire. Basically, not much could be done. Cool Breeze completely paralyzed, and basically his healing's gonna be out DPS'd by the Leviathans and the Psyblast. 7th going to be converging on Wildfire here. A well played from Riker.
A little bit trolly since
yeah.
they haven't GG'd yet.
Yeah.
It's a forfeit.
It's not a GG, it was a
didn't say GG,
it's a WP.
So it's just a violation for trash talking.
Well, considering also that one of the tournament host Wildfires is in Nephilim, you don't want to be going toe-to-toe with the rules. But there we go. So 7th Fleet takes the first game. Any thoughts on this, summarizing, Bozo?
It all turned on that exchange where they managed to kill the Leviathan. That was the pivotal changing moment. Things that I think Nephilim could have done better, they could have been a little more aggressive at the beginning just to create some more containment and get their Leviathans fatter. And just respected Nephilim, or respected 7's comp a little bit less. Double Plague is really annoying and kind of scary, but the launching was not scary, and they needed to devote less resources to countering it and devote more resources to just killing them. Meanwhile, 7th played a very, very clever game of sort of waiting for their comp to turn around, and I really liked it, and I don't have anything to say against it. I thought that was very clean and well played.
And considering that's coming from you, Bozo, because you like to analyze the comps and stuff like that, that's definitely a compliment. So I agree. I think Nephilim should have pushed with the Destros and the two Guardians and been a bit more baller or aggressive when they had that window of opportunity. It was at 13 minutes into the game. Alright, so we are going to be casting Game 2 of this matchup, guys. It's not over. Nephilim's going to try to redeem themselves and come back, so we have a Game 3. But for now, we're going to take a little break, and we will see you soon. GG!
GG!